Hey, everybody, welcome back to the FloTrack podcast. FloTrackPodcast at gmail.com is our email address. We certainly would love for you to write in. Running out of things to talk about, not going to lie. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher as well. Lincoln, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well, Kevin. I don't think we'll ever run out of things to say. There's just so many hypotheticals that we can, employ, and there's what ifs, that what if the what ifs did happen, but then the second what if did. There's just iterations that we can keep going towards, and I think we can delve into Gordon's personal life, all of our finances. There's just a lot to talk about.
We could argue about the previous show that one of us wasn't on and why that person was
Mm-hmm.
completely wrong. It can just go in a complete
Yep.
circle.
Yep.
I'm just
Yep.
appealing to people's goodwill to try to get more emails, to try to get more topics.
Yep.
We'll read some today for sure. But yes, as you mentioned, no shortage of hypotheticals. As we talked about yesterday, it is Bowerman week on the site. You did your top 10 Jerry Schumacher coached athletes. You didn't say Bowerman because you wanted to make it broader.
Yeah, a lot of the top athletes were not. It wasn't official. They weren't wearing the Bowerman kits yet. They were still a part of
Old red
Oregon
and
Track
black.
Club. Yeah,
Yeah.
so they were still wearing the green and the trees a little bit there. So yeah, it was a kind of a confusing combination. But the pro team he's most known for is obviously Bowerman. So that I don't know. I kind of lumped them all in together.
Okay. Any controversial picks there? Any rankings
Yeah.
that you labored over late into the evening yesterday?
Yeah, no, most thing I was laboring over was just getting internet at this new residence I'm at. However, a little bit of back and forth in my head for a couple things. One, to who to put number one. I went with Evan Jager over Shalane Flanagan. I don't know what people's thoughts are there. And then whether to include Ryan Hill or not. And I ultimately did not, because there's been a lot of medalists on the Bowerman Track Club and a lot of American records and a lot of national titles. And Hill, although he medaled, it was an indoor medal, and he hasn't done enough as far as the record department and otherwise outdoor medals. So I left him off.
That's a tough list to make. It's a tough list to get
Yeah.
into the top 10 because there were some people there where
Mhm.
you're like, oh, yeah, like I forgot that person. And they
Yeah.
ran for the Bowerman Track Club and they were really good. And some of the younger people haven't had an opportunity to get in. Now, were you just including time that they competed with Schumacher, or was the
Yeah.
athlete's entire career eligible?
Yeah, that was I went in with the wanting to do the time with Schumacher, and that only became a complication. Well, with two people, was with Shalane Flanagan. She was a medalist
Yeah.
before she joined Schumacher, so I kind of just left that part because she had such a good career, a decade run with him of making two Olympic teams in the marathon, and then obviously winning New York, that it was easy to include her even without her silver medal from Beijing and everything she did in cross country before that. And then where I really decided it has to just be with Schumacher was, if this was a true top 10 list of the best athletes ever to be coached by Bowerman or by Schumacher, Matthew Centrowitz would have to be on, except he's only been on the team for 1 year. So I said, kind of need to have the resume of what you've done with Schumacher. And in that sense, Centro had not done enough to make the top 10.
Could put Alan Webb on there too, if you're going to include people who've been coached by Schumacher. It would get a little tricky there.
Right, exactly. And, Kara Goucher was as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it wanted it to be people what they've accomplished with him as the coach.
I think if you include Shalane's silver from 08, then you have to put her ahead of Jager, clearly, right? Because then she has the silver. Yeah. She has all of those U.S. titles, which I know Jager has a lot of U.S. titles, but Shalane Flanagan just ruled over U.S. 5,000 to marathoning there for a long time. Even before she went to the marathon, basically 5,000, whether or not it was roads, cross, or on the track, all those little national championships. I mean, all those championships that she piled up throughout the years was crazy impressive. And then you throw in the New York City title and the top 5 major marathon performances and the fast time in the marathon. and the American records across numerous distances. But I understand you needed to put a cutoff point, and a lot of that stuff was before she went to Schumacher. So then it becomes closer.
And one other thing I wanted to factor in, and I don't know, it's tough to know how big of a deal this was being outside the team, but she was the first woman on the Bowerman Track Club, and you have to think of her, pioneer feels like a little too strong of a word, but she probably started the movement towards there being a very, very strong female contingent on the Bowerman Track Club. She was the first, according to my limited research, the first woman to be coached by Jerry Schumacher. So, there was a leap that she had to take there, and I think she sort of paved the way for obviously the best female training group in the U.S. and maybe in the world.
Yeah, I think we can say that definitively. I just thought, well, when you go, it's tough to compare across gender and across events. Jager obviously has got the American record, has the 2 medals, has all those U.S. titles. But then you're trying to compare that to major marathon finishes, right? And that is difficult. But I wanted to come up with a different list for Bowerman.
Okay.
And mine is just moments, top Bowerman moments. And I came up with, what do I have here? I have 8 on here. 8 in no particular order. Maybe we can order them at the end.
Yeah. Any significance? Number 8? You couldn't make it to 10?
I mean, I could, but these are the 8 that stood out. And maybe you'll think of some. Maybe you'll think of some more. This was just my first draft here. So we'll start with the most recent one. You ready to start with the most recent one? I think this qualifies. I think this qualifies. I think that women's 3,000 at the BU Last Chance qualifies. You had Krisha Schweizer, Shelby Houlihan, and Colleen Quigley all destroy the American record in the same race. Was it a time trial? 100% it was a time trial. But it was, they literally, it wasn't just hyperbole. They literally rewrote the record book in that race. So I think that needs to be included there.
Oh, absolutely. And you add in the twist that it was Shalane Flanagan's record previously. It was just a full Bowerman onslaught. Sure, it was kind of a weak record. I mean, fast 3,000s are few and far between. Typically, they're not a super, it's an indoor distance, but Bowerman, they race so sparingly. They want to be focused on times that are going to benefit them outdoors. So they may be trying to run a fast 5K indoors or a fast 1,500. So you're not usually going to see that a fast one, but adding in the fact that Krista Schweizer took a step forward and beat Shelby Houlihan and ran 8:25. It's one that's going to stand out, I think, for a while, particularly so when it was one of the last really, really good races before the coronavirus shut down. It's kind of got I don't know. It reminds me of Sweeter Times. We watched it in the Atlanta hotel room at the trials, and it's just one of my last memories before I stopped leaving my home.
This got dark. All right, the next one I have, we're going in reverse chronological order here, because the next one I have late last year. Actually, I don't even remember it. No. Okay. Yeah. This happened early fall, right? Woody Kincaid in the forest.
Right. Before Worlds. Before Worlds in sorry, I just got a text update from my wife. She just killed a roach. So that's big news in our house because we just moved in and we already had our first roach friend, but she got him. So big news. Okay. Otherwise, yes, this was before Worlds, and this was kind of like
another pure time trial.
Yeah. So 5K subterfuge. You didn't even know this was really going to happen. I think we heard rumors that this was going to go down. The thing was, Woody Kincaid and Lopez Lemong both finished in the top 3 at USA's, but they didn't have the standard in 2019. They did not want that to happen in the Olympic year that they thought was going to happen in 2020. So they ripped out this Portland 5,000. A film was made by our buddy RJ McNichols. Really a lot of hype for a time trial. But aside from everyone running 13 flat and faster, I mean, Woody Kincaid's, why do I always get this confused? Was it 12:57 or 12:58?
I thought it was 12:58, but now you have me.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know why.
I can guess it. We have too many times in our
well,
head. That's why.
Yeah, I do need to look this up. But I mean, that's obviously his career defining race up to this point. Which for somebody that, when he first
12:58.
12:58. When he first joined, it was kind of like Woody Kincaid's on the Bowerman Track Club. Like, what is? I mean, he would have been good at Portland, but not somebody that you would have. He's not Grant Fisher, for sure. But when he showed how he was really, really fit in Des Moines, even then I didn't think, I don't think this is a sub 13 guy. But the perfect conditions, perfect pacing from Mohamed, and it was just a huge step forward for him, and another, more gravy for the Jerry Schumacher train as far as showing how deep his squad runs. Because if you would ask me, where does Woody Kincaid rank on the current Bowerman Track Club? I mean, I think he would have been outside the top 5, and now all of a sudden he's the guy that's like, if this guy figures it out, is he going to be a medalist? I mean, he beat Lamong and Centro, and both those guys obviously are no slouches. It just was an incredible night and an incredible performance out of him.
Yeah, it shows the depth of the team that you have 3 people run, because we forget how fast Lamong and Centro ran in that race. If like Woody Kincaid wasn't in that race and it was Mohamed pacing, and then Lamong and Centro ran what they did with those low 13 times, we would have been like, oh my goodness, that's incredible. Yeah. And also, it's Woody Kincaid is, as you mentioned, didn't come in as this blue chip recruit. Yes, he had some good races in the NCAA, but you talk about doing more with less. This is a perfect example, right, of that. Because you could just say, oh, Bowerman, they already they take the best people from college and they just continue them on that same trajectory. And he's obviously done that with certain people. Takes a different sort of style and different sort of ability to take somebody and knock off, 14 seconds off his PR in one race.
I mean, and that was an indoor PR. I mean, so he had run the Sunset Tour race in LA before USA's, and nobody hit the standard, but it was kind of like, it just was not expected at all, even after USA's. I mean, 12:58, breaking 13 is still incredibly significant for an American. It just doesn't happen very often. I mean, I think Galen Rupp did it one time in his career. I know he was more of a 10,000 guy, but for Kincaid to be in that realm and to do it in a race in the woods was a little surprising, to say the least.
Yeah. So then I went back just a couple months to 2019 USA's as a top Bowerman moment. I know this isn't one single race, but I wanted something that captured the depth of this current group. And you mentioned, Kincaid didn't have the standard, and Josh Thompson didn't have the standard, and Lamong didn't have the standard in the 5. So there's 3 additional spots on teams they could have gotten. But look at who they did get on. They got on, obviously, Centro, Shelby, Mariel Hall, Lamong in the 10,000, Frericks, Quigley, who ultimately couldn't run because she got hurt, Krisha Schweizer in the 5,000. Am I missing somebody here? Jager got hurt, so Jager didn't run because he got hurt. So that it wasn't a perfect meet for them. It was not a perfect meet by any means for them, but the fact that they could not have an off meet, not have things go perfectly their way, and still advance that many people in those races was mighty impressive.
Look, I don't want to just sit here and just say that Schumacher, everything he touches turns to gold, but look at somebody like Thompson, whose career looked dead in the water just like a year ago, and he was running like 9-minute steeples and seemingly couldn't get anything right, and then he comes through at USA's and finally delivers on his potential, and then just to start 2020 absolutely on fire, and then he was leaving indoors like, oh, this is a guy that's going to be an Olympian, like, unless he gets hurt, there's no doubt. And that's just what the turnaround that is for him, and to run 3:34 indoors. So if you wanted to say everything that Jerry Schumacher touches turns to gold. I mean, he would be the example because he looked like somebody that's like, oh, okay, you know, Bowerman's allowed to have one guy that just doesn't click. And then they've had people before that, you know, it hasn't worked out. But my goodness, if you're on that team, the expectation and usually the outcome is you're going to be making teams and you're going to be running very, very fast. And it's just crazy how deep they are. And it showed that even though they didn't have a perfect meet, but I mean, you know, Houlihan didn't run the 5,000 at Worlds, but she won the 5,000. And you mentioned Quigley. I know she didn't run at Worlds, but she got hurt. And then also he's not on the team anymore. But Andy Bayer made it in the steeple. It used to be on Bowerman Track Club. The reach is very, very far. And then of course we had Paul Chalimo, who, I mean, thanks to him, it was nice of him to do this, sacrifice his own race, but he paced the Bowerman Track Club, which was nice.
Which he had no intention of doing, and started a rivalry that has entertained us all for the last year or so. Let's go back to 2017 because 2018. Well, 2018 was Shelby's American record, right? In the 5,000. Was that 2018?
Yes.
Am I remembering that right?
Yes.
I mean, there's a lot of records to choose from. So I didn't put that one on my list, although you could, if you want to slot that in at number 9, I would not blame you. I went to November 2017 for Shalane Flanagan's New York City win.
Yeah. If you wanted to rank moments, I think that would have to be,
I have it number 1 unofficially right now.
Yeah, it would probably be number 1 just for when it came in Shalane Flanagan's career. You know, it was kind of her somewhat riding off into the sunset. A major marathon had eluded her. It was kind of had eluded every American.
This was before Dez's Boston win too. Yeah, this snapped the streak, the drought.
That's true. It's tough to remember those things now. It does feel like a long time ago, but yeah, it was huge as far as the drought that had been going on for U.S. American marathons. But it really just put a nice bow on Shalane's career as far as what she had done to have really hit the pinnacle of the sport and in every discipline, cross country, track, and the roads. It was a big one for her to get. Yeah,
the across the line too. It had it all.
It did. It did.
Yeah, because I think since she had been there, I mean, as you mentioned, she was the first woman in the group too. There was that symmetry to her now achieving this accomplishment that nobody else, I mean, had been over 30 years since a woman had won one of those. So that was, I mean, the Boston streak was around that same time length. She didn't get it in Boston, but I think if you're comparing, I mean, New York, they're both hard to win, right? That's the thing. Like New York and Boston, they both have long American droughts. They don't have them anymore because of Flanagan and Dez. But you're right. That was the. I mean, I think that's the top moment of her career, right? And if it's a top moment of her career, I think it has to be a top moment for the group just because of the role she played there. We'll go back a few months there. This again, I did a little bit of a cop out here. I just picked 2017 Worlds because they got 3 medals there. They got Jager's bronze, Frerichs' silver, and then Amy Craig's medal in the marathon. So three medals at Worlds.
Yeah, the Frerichs one will always stand out. I know another American won gold in front of her, but just that 1-2 punch is, you just think of that when for me at least, when you think of the London World Championships in 2017, you kind of go with that first. But you know, just looking at Amy Craig's career, she joined the Bowerman Track Club in 2016 when she was, you know, I don't know, 30, 33 or 32. She'd already had basically a career before this, but look at what she does as soon as she joins Schumacher. She wins the Olympic trials in 2016. In 2017, she wins the bronze medal in London in the World Championships. And then in 2018, she runs 2:21 in Tokyo. I know she's had, she wasn't able to run the trials this past February because of a sickness, but you know, she had already had a full career before she joined him. And then right after, it's like she gets there and it's all of a sudden like, oh yeah, the best 3 performances of your entire career. I mean, solid. Like that's legit. And then Jager, I know he had won the silver in Rio, but to get 2 medals after, the narrative was like, when is he going to figure out the podium in the steeplechase? And then he had only missed in 2012, 13, and 15. But for him to become like, oh, he's going to be a major player in every single final, to get that, to back it up with another medal. I like my medalists to be multiple time medalists. That's just me. And that was sure nice for him.
Well, that brings me to my next one, which was Jager from the year before, because it's the silver medal and because it's the Olympics. I had to throw that one in there as well too. Obviously, look, we remember a time when the United States was not good in the steeplechase. We remember a time when the United States was not medaling really in any distance event. So the fact that Jager reeled off 2 medals, if you had told someone that in 2001 or 2005 or even 2008, maybe, he said in the men's steeple, the U.S. is going to produce a person who goes into races with a chance for gold. And that was Jager in both these races. And I know that that last little piece, that last little acceleration in the final 300 with the Ezekiel Kemboys and the Kinceslas Kiprutus is tough to handle. But Kenya had a death grip on this race for so many years. And now you see, Ethiopia this year almost did it in Doha on that crazy race down to the wire where Kiprutu saved the streak. But Jager, because of what he did in Diamond Leagues, and same thing on the women's side with a non-BTC athlete with Emma Coburn, where it's like, wait a minute, could the U.S. win gold in the steeple? And Coburn obviously did pull it off, but there's an alternate race there where Jager gets gold, because I think like bronze or fourth was like his absolute floor. That's how good he got. That's how good he is, right? Is like, okay, I don't see him dropping out of like the 3 Kenyans can beat him, but that's pretty much it. Or maybe El Bakali can beat him, or they'll be like at that time, his range of possibilities in these races was like, he's going to finish first to fourth. Like it's going to be somewhere in there.
Yeah. I'm curious what you think flipped for him. Maybe he just figured out his finishing speed. Because in tactical steeples, it was kind of just he didn't have that. No one did, but he didn't have that Ezekiel Kimboy gear when all of a sudden everybody's running not everybody, when the best guys are running sub 60 or 60 seconds in the last lap. Did he just get fitter? I'm wondering what he did that clicked, that all of a sudden it kind of seemed like he was going to go through a period for a while and maybe destined, just with how deep the steeple is in terms of the Kenyans. And then you mentioned El Bakali. Did he just get fitter, do you think? I don't know. You probably don't have an answer for this, but I wonder, just, it was like, looked like it was going to be a serious problem, because you remember back in 2015, he runs the American record, should have broken 8 minutes if it wasn't for that untimely fall in Paris. And then he just got trashed in Beijing. Just, Kimboy had an extra gear, and he even got beat by Dan Hewling in the final in Beijing. It was just like, I don't know if this guy's going to be able to figure it out in the championship finals. And then all of a sudden he's a 2-time medalist 2 years later. Did the speed increase? What do you think was the result of him figuring it out at the championship races?
I think it's speed, but I think it's also the fact of experience. He only started doing it in 2012, right? Yeah. And he's already, how old was Jager in 2012 when he was doing it? Because remember, he left school early
23
to move.
20.
Yeah, he was 23. Yeah, so he was basically the age of a redshirt college senior, right?
Yeah, that's true.
When he debuted in the steeple. I just think it took it took races under his belt too to get used to it. Now, the thing about steeplechase, as people know, is of all the distance races, it mimics a Diamond League race. Like the championships mimic the Diamond League races more so than any other event, because they don't typically dawdle too much in steeplechase finals, because of they have to go over barriers and things, and jogging an 80-second lap is treacherous with that many good people. So that's something to account for as well too. I think that maybe helped it a little bit in terms of, okay, I'm one of the fastest guys in the race. Let's just keep this going. Let's just make this fast. I didn't watch to prep for this, I didn't watch all of his races, but I seem to remember even in 16 and 17, didn't he do a fair bit of leading toward the latter stages of the race? Like, wasn't he really, he was really trying to keep the, and maybe he did that in 15 too. He was trying to keep the pace going. He was trying to get it going, but I mean, look, he started doing it in 2012. It took him about 4 years to get to the level. And now he had a head start because he was a really good 5,000 meter runner, but it took him 4 years to get second in the world. I hope we see, I mean, it's 2019 he got hurt, and then obviously 2020 was scrapped. So now we got to go to 2021 with him. So now he's going to be, what, 30, now my numbers are all off, 32.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope we get to see, I hope he still has that form, because you're right. The potential to break 8 was like right there. Obviously, if not for the barrier, he would have done it. I don't think anybody disagrees with that when you run as fast as he did and you were literally on the ground. And then his ability to medal, to get a gold. He's already got the silver and the bronze, but to get a gold is right there. I hope he still has that opportunity.
And look, he looked good in indoors coming back. I mean, I think he ran 3:56 on the mile and ran well in Boston when they ran a 3K. I wouldn't think that it would be anything that would be missing. I mean, might not be an 8 flat shape right now, and he may never break 8 minutes, which I know is something that's high on his list. But I didn't see anything in 2019. Yes, there was an emergence of a couple Ethiopian athletes, but there's nothing to me that says he's going to be, he has stopped being a factor in the championship races just because he's going to miss 2 years, unfortunately. He's still right there. I think he's still plenty young enough to be a pretty big factor. I know you can't copy and paste one person's career onto another, but Ezekiel Kimboy basically did it for 30 years. I don't see why Jager wouldn't be able to if he can stay healthy.
Well, the thing with Kimboy too is he's a generational talent. It's not like Jager went in there and was losing to just a guy, a carbon copy of somebody who just fills that slot and can run 8:05 to 7:59 or something. Like, if Kimboy wasn't there, and this isn't a controversial opinion, but it's like he would have won. He would have won. Like it wouldn't have been like, oh, somebody else just would have popped up and filled that void. No, like Kimboy is special, right? Kimboy's last 300 meters is absolutely bananas, absolutely nuts.
Oh, yeah.
Like he's that good. Kipruto, kind of starting to get into that same realm too. So it's a tough era of steeplers that he's running against, but Kimboy in particular was so good good that you might, if you go back and look, oh man, some things could have broken differently for him. Obviously you talk about the Paris race, but I think you also think, man, he was going up against Kimboy when Kimboy still had something left. He comes around maybe 2 years later or something, and Kipruto is still on the rise and Kimboy's on the way out. Could be a different result there.
Yeah. And when I think of, it's weird, it's for a guy who's accomplished so much, I do still associate, when I think of Evan Jager, I think of that 2015 race in Paris where he ran the American record but tripped over the final barrier. It's hard to shake that. It's crazy that that's been 5 years ago. But what I wanted to say about Rio is that race was such a weird race when Kimboy getting disqualified by what is it, Makassi Benabad, the French steepler guy, for tattling, because Kimboy got an advantage by stepping on 0.5 millimeter on the inside. But that race also, Jager's got, I was looking through photos the other day of Evan Jager and just the sunglasses shining off the, this is not going nowhere. This is just in my brain. They don't have anything really relevant to say about this other than I always think of that race because I remember, following that Olympics was different because we're used to the Olympics either being on tape delay here in the States or, you're watching it at some weird hour. And that race took place in like the middle of the day and you're just like track finals happening with sunlight. We're like, what is going on? Why are they having this race so early? I mean, I almost think it was like at like 11 o'clock in the morning. It was so weird. And then all that happened with Kimboy and then Jager getting that medal. It was just a weird, it was a funny experience overall, I think. And just having that race as one of his standout moments is I always think of all those weird little glitches that were associated with that Rio final.
the women too, right? The women was during
The
the day.
women were also during the day as well. Yeah. Yeah. And I think the women's 10,
like,
there were several track races. Yeah. That
women's
were
10 was
several
too.
distance races. Yeah.
I was gonna say that's when the disrespect of the steeple started, of like, just throw it on during the day, whatever.
We should have seen it in hindsight. That's when it was starting to take hold. Yeah. When they're putting you in the morning, that's when you know you need to watch out.
Refresh my memory of 2016 with Kemboy's finishing place before he got DQ'd.
Well, it was third. I think he got bronze, right?
Okay.
Because I don't remember any. I don't think it was. It's not
so
like
Jager
I don't
beat
remember
him.
Jager getting. Yeah, Jager beat him. Yeah. And I mean, he's Ezekiel Kimboy is always my 2016 bronze medalist. Not that he needed another medal, but that is outrageous that he doesn't have that medal. But I was just adding that in. And Jager's medal. Yeah,
I guess I was thinking about 15 then. I was thinking about 15 when Kemboy.
Oh, he won in 15. Kimboy won in 15. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. But when I'm talking about Jager having the unfortunate duty of going against like peak Kemboy, and then right into peak on top. Then I know it's not like Jager finished second right behind him, but I mean that's kind of a soul crushing move there on the backstretch from Kemboy, right?
Listen, I've talked about this a million times with you, and you've heard me riff about the Beijing World Championships too many times, enough to pull your eyes out. But other than Gatlin versus Bolt, that move by Kemboy in 2015, I encourage anyone to watch it if you haven't, or if you haven't seen it in a while. Term is overused, but cheat code. His acceleration was absolutely stunning. I mean, that's when I was like, how is Evan Jager ever supposed to medal or, obviously beat one of these guys? It was, I know Kemboy is finally, started to slow down, but that was unbelievable to see someone run that fast in the last lap of a steeplechase and to accelerate the way he did. And that's why he's wanting, aside from just the dancing, Ezekiel Kemboy's hijacked this Bowerman podcast, but aside from just the dancing, his performances were super entertaining. And then, of course, running out into lane 8. That's also a signature move.
All right, we got two more here. 2016 Olympic women's marathon trials with Cragg and Flanagan. Cragg gets the win, and you have the awesome emotional scene afterwards because she was literally dragging Shalane Flanagan there. So I picked that one. They get 2 of the 3 spots on the Olympic team, but it was teamwork. It was teamwork. It was hot that day in LA. I was there. I remember that one. I may not remember when Ezekiel Kemboy won gold medals, Lincoln, but I do remember the Olympic marathon trials in 2016.
Yeah, just assume it was every single time. That was a statement race for maybe Cragg, and Flanagan had to be in a wheelchair afterwards, so that's that's an image for the family album there, that she was able to gut through that. Yeah, it was very hot. I wasn't there, but everyone who was there tells me it was pretty hot that day, unseasonably warm for LA in that time of year. So just that one will be one for a while, and that's when our first introduction to the old Vaporflies started. I don't think we knew what was going on there, but
we're not doing
some
that.
people would say, we're not doing that. We're not going to go in there. Okay. All right.
Shoe King, check it out. It's coming to Netflix.
This week. They had to push it back.
I thought it was a like during the race, remember, she's like, they were encouraging each other, so you got to actually see teammates interact in that race. But even if they didn't, you get 2 of the 3 spots on the marathon team. That's pretty dang good. And then my last one, I'm going to jump a whole bunch of years and go to pre-BTC in 2010 with the Solinsky race.
Yeah. So here's a little sidebar. This is just fascinating, and it has no one's going to care about this, maybe other than you. So yesterday I was just trying to get my years right while writing this top 10 list of Bowerman athletes, and there was an article written. It was a Q&A with Jerry Schumacher in the weeks following Chris Solinsky's 10,000 meter American record in 2010.
Mm-hmm.
And it was going into a little bit of his backstory about how, and I guess I didn't know this exactly, but how he first kind of left and was, coaching, I guess, alongside Alberto Salazar. Was that correct? I didn't remember that. I mean, I know those guys don't like each other, but
well, if I'm remembering this correctly, that was the original plan. Hey, come
okay.
out to Oregon, leave Wisconsin, come out to Oregon, start this pro group with me. That was the initial intention, if I'm remembering correctly.
And I guess I'm just kidding. This isn't true, but I want to make this up on the spot. I guess they went out for beers and they just didn't meet eye to eye, and they ended up in a fist fight after. No, I'm just kidding. I had to preface that because I think I don't want people to think I'm lying all the time. So anyways, this article, I was reading it yesterday. It's from 2010, and it said in the article that Jerry Schumacher's original plan was to go out and coach alongside or whatever with Alberto Salazar with the now defunct Nike Oregon project. This article was written in 2010, and either the author or the editor of this website had gone back 10 years or 9 years later, gone back into the CMS, edited the post from 10 years ago to say the now defunct Nike Oregon project. I was fascinated with that.
Well, hold on though. I think what this could have been is there was a first iteration of the Oregon project, and then I think they rebranded it as just OTC. Yeah, I think so.
Oh,
like Dan Brown. Okay. Like when Dan Brown was living in the altitude house with all those other people, and there was that big article. Google this while you got your computer and your fast internet in front of you. Google Oregon Project Wired magazine and tell me when that article was from, because that's the first time I remember reading about it. But Rupp wasn't running initially for the Nike Oregon project. It was OTC Elite. That's why he's in that same, or OTC Portland, whatever it was called. That's why he's in the same thing, same jersey as Solinsky.
I've got an article from 2002 here. Is that the ultimate running machine? Yeah.
Yep. So it was Dan Brown, and it was a whole bunch. And the whole idea was, the way this whole thing started was Salazar was going to bring American marathoning back to the forefront, back to the glory days. And he was using all this cutting edge science to do it. And they had an altitude house. That's why Wired was so interested in the story. There was all this tech that went along with it. And I don't know if funding dried up or what, because obviously Rupp is in high school around that time, or about to be in high school around that time. So then he starts coaching at Central Catholic. I don't know if he was doing both of the things at the same time, but then, I think that they at least got rid of the name, right? Because Oregon Project jerseys don't start showing up, I don't think, until, is it 2011, the Daegu year? Because Farah joined the group at the beginning of 2011. But if you go back and look at 20
now.
Yeah, I mean, I shout out to the editor if they really did go back and go into the CMS 9 years later. That's because good editing. But
an onlooker of the 2010 race that we'll talk about finally in just a sec was Solinsky unseating Rupp, or kind of taking his shine and what was supposed to be his American record race. They're both wearing the same OTC kit in there, but of course they couldn't be anything further away than teammates or training partners. So it's just funny. I think you're right. Your intuition is probably closer to the truth than me thinking somebody went back 10 years later and edited an article to make it more factually correct for posterity. But anyways, yes, that race, the Chris Solinsky 26:59, there's been many running stories on many sites written about it, just famous for its surprise, famous for who was in the race, how fast it was altogether. Solinsky jumping in a 10,000. It was his first career 10,000. Yeah. And then obviously the year he had overall in 2010, he broke 13 minutes on 3 occasions, and just the misfortune of having the best season of his career in an off year. Somehow, some way, having the ball bounce incorrectly enough to where someone of his capability never made an Olympic team. It's all of that in one, and then nothing kind of defines the career of Chris Solinsky more than the 26:59 at Peyton Jordan.
Yeah. Yeah, and also in that same race, Simon Byru, who was in that group, breaks the Canadian record as well too. It was a big moment for the group. Not that they needed validation. I mean, it was another. I don't think BTC jerseys popped up. Gordon and I were talking about this yesterday until 2014.
Right. I remember. What I was going to say. I remember when they were talking publicly about like what they were going to name it, and they thought about naming it like Rip City. Which I mean, I think they made the correct decision to go to Bowerman Track Club. It just it flows a little nicer, and you give homage to old Bill. So I think it works out.
It's a good name and good color scheme too. They did good on that stuff.
Yeah. The red and black, just enough bad mixed with just enough good. You don't have any skull and crossbones or whatever it was, or skull of the Nike Orca project. But it's mysterious. I like it.
Too many things. I know they were the first one to do project, I think, but too many things became project that it became a little overdone. Whereas Track Club is just classic. I know a lot of things are named Track Club, but that's literally what they are. I mean, they have like masters runners and youth runners, so they literally are a track club in Portland. And like I mentioned with the jerseys, #1 ranking on the kit rankings, done by yours truly last year. So can't argue with that.
I'll never forget the moment. Well, I'll probably forget the moment because I forget a lot of things. But last year, both I and Jonathan Gall of Let'sRun.com were interviewing Kate Grace after a round at USA's. And I always, as you know, I like to end with random stupid questions. And I asked her about her uniform because last year they had the I don't know, how would you describe the mixture of red and black on the uniform of the 2019? It was just kind of like a mirage type thing. I don't know. It was, you have to see it anyways. I said, yeah, I like it. I mean, I think it's cool. And then Jonathan Gall of Let's Run said, yeah, I don't really care for it. And it was just kind of like this awkward thing. It's like, we've got Kate Grace there wearing the uniform. And then basically Jonathan Gall just said, I don't like your outfit. And it was just kind of like, okay, well, I don't really know what to do there. Forgot where I was, but just a lot of random things are surfacing now that I have all this idle time.
Well, I think their jerseys last year were awesome. I liked them. I liked the plasma craziness of them. I did not like the NOP ones last year with the weird color scheme. I came up with all the words to describe it last year, and I don't remember the exact way I described it, but it was like a I don't know, like the discoloration was very jarring to me. I like the classic like black and white thing. I didn't need like a weird rainbow interspersed in there.
Yeah, it looked like an oil spill. That's what the NOP jerseys look like. Yeah, it looked like an oil spill. I think
that's what we decided on. What was the other what was the random question you asked Ryan Krauser last year? Speaking of last question, Lincoln Strikes.
Oh no, that was not last year. That was at US Indoors. I wondered if he thought, because he wears cowboy hats, if he thought the cowboy hat was an underrated hat. So I just liked having fun with it. And he did think it was an underrated hat. He definitely thought it was underrated, which makes sense. Yeah. So
here's why that's a good question. Here's why that's a good question. I bet he's been asked a million times, why do you wear the cowboy hat? Right. But no one's like taken the next step. Like you went the next step in his brain of like, oh, let's get some commentary on this. Let's see what he thinks about the culture of cowboy hats. And let's go, is it an underrated hat?
Well, and I also wanted to kind of discover the mindset behind it, because as you mentioned, I know he went to Texas, and he's kind of has the appearance of obviously being a good old boy, and it's not somebody you'd want to pick a fight with, somebody who's 6'7" and over 300 pounds. No, he's from Oregon. He's from Oregon originally, so he's not actually he doesn't have the typical cowboy background, but he's adopted it for his own. Not only going to Texas, but wearing the cowboy hat all the time before and after competitions. He really adopted it.
But if you look at what anybody's wearing or what anybody's doing, and you ask that person, hey, do you think X is underrated? You'll probably get a pretty good answer, because they think it is, because they're like, if I asked you, I said, hey, Lincoln, do you think Holmes and Taylor, Texas are underrated right now? What would you say?
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say definitely, and people need to start buying out here. Definitely underrated.
Buy. All right,
Yeah.
let's rank these. Let's see if we can come to a
Okay.
consensus on ranking, because I don't want to argue. This is all about peace and love. Number 1, we're giving to Flanagan. I'm going to put a 1 by that one.
Good.
What's
I like
2? It. Is 2 Jager's silver medal? Is it the 2019 USA's? Is it the marathon trials?
Oh, that's tough. I got to look at the
Is
list.
it
I know your
Solinsky?
name. I mean, it's just we've been told over and over and over again, beat over the head, and this is what the athletes say too, is to value medals over anything else. But I think I want to put that second. I mean, if
Solinsky?
I can tell you, I can literally, and I know I'm a running nerd, and this is what I do for a career, but I can tell you he ran 26:59:60 off the top of my head. It's been 10 years ago. I had to, during the course of this, I had to think to myself, okay, was Evan Jager, did he get silver in 2016 or 2017? I know that's because he got 2 medals and I knew they were different, but I didn't have to, down to the decibel, I didn't have to think, rack my memory what time Chris Solinsky ran. You just remember it more. And the fact that it happened on US soil is, and in a race that, wasn't just a championship one where he got 9th, and that doesn't mean 1:26:59 is better than the other, but this was just stunning and to the magnitude that I think you have to put it number 2.
All right, then number 3, you have women's 3K at BU, Woody Kincaid, 2019 USA's, 2017 Worlds, Jager Olympics, or Olympic marathon trials for the women.
I'll show my bias, and you can veto this, but I want to go to Courtney Frerich's silver because a Missouri product. There's not many world championship medalists from Nixa, Missouri. I know famously Jason Bourne was from Nixa, Missouri, and so a fictional native, and then Courtney Frerichs being the real native. I think that was stunning for her, and maybe a race you could also include in there would be her American record a year later, but I would put that third for me.
Okay. No, I agree. Well, because the way I positioned it with 2017 Worlds, you get 3 for the price of 1 there. So I'll say that's 3. I'll put Jager's silver 4, and then I think I would go marathon trials 5.
Yeah.
2019 USA's 6, and then the 2 most recent ones, Kincaid and the women's 3K, I'd go 8 and 9 there.
You'd go Kincaid above the 3 women. Yeah.
I don't know. It's weird not to have. I mean, you have Shelby in the 2019 USA's category, but you don't really have her again in here. It's weird because she's been so good.
Yeah,
but
she ran
8 and 9. Yeah, and was disappointed. Broke the American record in that one. Well, I don't even think she'd want us to include it in here. I really don't think. Right. I don't think she thought I mean, that wasn't the story that she wanted there. I mean, 8 and 9. I mean, both of those are time trials, and other than the Solinsky race, which obviously had crazy import for other reasons. So I'll go the women's 3K 8, and then Kincaid, or sorry, 7, and then Kincaid 8. That's what my list will round out.
And I like that list because I mean, ultimately, the Portland race, once you got past the times, it was kind of like, what was the point of this? I know they wanted to hit the standard, but it really didn't, taking place basically after Kincaid's season had already run the course of the race. And it was more of like what could have been in 2019. Cause it felt like, oh man, why couldn't you have done this earlier? Like why couldn't you have tried to do this in July before USA's or in June or something? And I know probably the fitness hadn't progressed.
Wasn't ready.
He wasn't ready, but I mean, it just was more of like it still had some head scratching things. Whereas Schweizer was like, that was her breakout, and it established her as somebody who could maybe be a medal contender. And I don't know. It just, I see. We don't have to go over and over again of which race should be 7 and which should be 8. But I think Schweizer and all 3 of those women breaking the old record is more impressive than the Portland 5K.
The Portland race was a cool running moment, right? Had a cool backdrop, had a cool stage, and had a unexpected result. Like, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. And in a world where we don't need to rank things, you could just be like, hey, this was a standalone cool thing. And it was.
Listen, that race was the favorite of all your friends named Trevor, who have whose favorite Radiohead album is from 1995 and have been to multiple Radiohead shows. Yeah.
Maybe. Now, this is different because U.S. distance running is at a different place, but maybe for 18 or 19-year-olds, like however old you were when you saw Solinsky's race, maybe that's what the Kincaid race was like for them.
Ah, good point. Good point. Was hipsterism a thing in 2010? Definitely not to the level it was in 2019, but
of course,
ranking most hipster races of all time, the Portland 5000 is way above anything else.
Yeah, well, anything in Portland is going to be higher than everything else. Okay, we got 10 minutes left. I want to read some emails.
Let's do it.
Read some emails here. This is from Patrick. Got a what if for you. What if NCAA cross country had promotion and relegation like what we see in European soccer? I'm thinking it'd be done by region and conference. Things would have to be realigned to make it all work. And I haven't worked out many details, but I figured the guys with the track podcast and no track could do some of that for me. For example, this year, the Rutger men, he says S purposely omitted, finished last from at the Big Ten meet. Down in D2, Grand Valley State finished first in the GLIAC and first in the region if you want to do it if you want to do promotion relegation by region. So in this scenario, Rutger is heading down, obviously Grand Valley moving up. For the sake of being fair to the athletes, let's also say that any runner on a relegated team can transfer without having to sit out a year. With that system, could we see a team like North Central rise all the way to D1? Would Adams State eventually be a D1 podium team? Would lower level D1 teams just shutter their programs all together? Stay safe and wash your hands. That is Patrick. That got dark there towards the end with
I was going to say, there's a lot going on there, and I prefer, there's plenty of other subpar running programs. I mean, Rutger just got the Scarlet Knights just did not see that smoke coming today. They thought
you've dug into the numbers before, though, right? You've dug into these numbers about D2, D3.
Well,
right?
Gordon looked at it, and he was saying that, like, I think he had. I don't know what exactly his system was. No one really knows his system for statistical content, but apparently, like, the top D2 program one year could get in the teens, and then he had North Central getting dead last at NCAAs. And obviously, there's a big drop off, and we'll never really know. I don't think there's going to be a relegation system. A little complicated as far as things go. And I think North Central likes winning Division III titles more than they like seeing where they could fare in Division I. But, maybe a really, really strong year. I think of the Adams State women this past fall. They were pretty darn good, and they went 1, 2, 3 at Division II nationals, and were running some pretty solid times. Maybe they could be a top 5 team, possibly, but I think you're going to find for the most part, a really good Division II team that wins nationals is probably going to be outside the top 10 at Division I, and then Division III. I would probably say you're either going to be last or second to last. I mean, there's a pretty clear drop off. Even the teams that get last, I wasn't thinking relegate. Let's not relegate the teams that are really struggling, like Rutgers, who probably doesn't put any money into cross country. I was thinking, like, let's relegate like the Florida States and Texas, whoever gets make it more fun, just because they're still a strong team, but relegate the teams that get last at nationals, which sure you could say
it's not conference. Yeah.
I mean, because
of course, these D2 and D3 teams could be relevant on a conference level because of the reason you're saying. A lot of teams, aren't putting they're not putting resources into their distance programs. So that's obvious.
I would love to see like Adams State versus Florida. It's not just shouting out those programs; they've been better than that. But some of the teams that we've seen in the last few years on the men's side finishing in the 30s, Middle Tennessee State, some of those programs that make the meet and then maybe don't do well. I'd love to see how they fare against the top programs. Otherwise, it's a waste of time to see how the Kansas State cross country team fares against Adams State. Adams State's going to win. Like, it's not that we know that. It's more of how is the teams that are at the bottom at NCAA D1s, how are they going to face against the teams that win the other divisions? I think that would be much more interesting.
Mm-hmm. All right, got another one here this one's from Kevin. Saw the article on who would win a virtual mile, got me wondering who would win and what would be the times if we allowed a series of virtual treadmill races. Depending on pace, someone might be able to run 10 seconds a mile faster on a treadmill. Could we see a sub 12 5K, 3:35 mile, or maybe a sub 4 women's mile? For reference, my fastest 5K on a track is 15:25, but ran a time trial on the treadmill the other day in 14:52.
Wait, what?
I didn't know this was a thing.
What world are we in? Wait, it's harder to run on a treadmill.
I think it feels harder, but I think he's right. I mean, some of that might be measuring error as well, too, right?
Oh, I didn't know. I thought you had slipped up when you said sub 12. I mean, obviously that's not going to happen probably regardless, but I thought you meant to say sub 13. I didn't know. I had no idea. I'm not familiar with this phenomenon.
On a treadmill.
Yeah, and with the shoes. Well, no, he's an Adidas. Never mind. He doesn't cheat. I understand that it's bouncy and it kind of pulls you along, but I didn't know that we were out here saying that running on a treadmill can make you much faster.
From hillrunner.com, according to them, because of a lack of wind resistance while running on a treadmill, the effort of running on a treadmill at 0% incline is less than that of running on a level road at the same pace. Below is a chart that you can use to approximate equivalent efforts between running on a treadmill at different paces and inclines and running outdoors on a level surface.
Okay, but riddle me this. Why, when I try to run 6-minute pace on a treadmill, am I in an all-out sprint?
Just loud. There's a guy next to you talking to you. It's just weird. You're not seeing things move by you. I mean, it's the same reason why when you run at night, I think, you always feel like you're going way faster than you are because you don't have anything in your frame of reference. Have you ever run on the track? Like, have you ever done like repeats on the track when it's completely dark? You feel like you're running 4:05 pace and you're not. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm not, at least, because there's nothing to judge it off of.
Okay. So back
Lincoln
to the question, I did, definitely. Back to the question. Yes, I did this exercise. Who did I think would win a virtual mile? I thought it would be a little bit more fun, but then I ended up coming back pretty much to just who the best milers in the world are. I said Safan Hassan would win a virtual mile on the women's side right now, not only because she was the best miler in the world by far last year, but also because I think the Michael Johnson track is still open legally. So because the Nike campus has not closed, so she would have access to that. And in that regard, I think she would win. And then on the men's side, I went with Jakob Ingebrigtsen. I've been seeing him rip on speaking of the treadmill, he's been running some quick workouts on the treadmill. I think he could, I don't know, maybe he could run 3:52, knowing what I know now about the treadmill, or possibly faster. Maybe he'd run 3:45 on the treadmill. I don't know. He looks pretty strong right now in that regard. So I don't know. Who would you pick in a virtual race? Because remember, like I said in the article,
can you sit and kick virtually?
Chariot, like I said, and now he can run really fast times in Nairobi, but you got to run where you're at. And my best investigative journalism indicates that Timothy Chariot is at home in Nairobi, where the altitude is 5,800 feet. It's going to be a little bit more challenged than Jakob Ingebrigtsen in the sea level of Sardins, Norway.
Yeah. Maybe Craig Engels.
That said, that said, though, what was I going to? Chariot's run 3:34 at 5,800 feet, so maybe he would still win.
And also, Chariot doesn't need any help to be pulled to a fast time. We know that because of Exhibit A, Doha World Championships. I want to do one more before we go because they're making fun of Gordon, so I want to do this one. This is from Kristen, Melody, and Marissa. She said, it's a long message. It's about injuries, but it's also making fun of Gordon. So it's a good email here. To Kevin and Lincoln, note, not to Gordon Mack, because you kind of made fun of Ed Eyestone last week on the podcast. And as you can see, we are BYU Cougar champions. And so you can't mess with Ed because he's a legend. Boom.
Yeah, there you go.
It goes back to the quarantine episode. To be fair, I think I think Gordon does like Ed Eyestone. He just said he didn't want to be quarantined with him. I've seen Gordon followed Ed Eyestone in the bleachers at the 2019 NCAA championships to film a reaction video with him. Anyway, quarantine, they say. It's a special time because we're all going crazy. And during that time, we have valiantly listened to the FloTrack podcast and even made up some of our own Britney Spears jokes. See the notes at the bottom. So they have some Britney Spears jokes at the bottom. Like, why is Bolt crying? Because he just got speared. Why did Spears move to England to be a surgeon so she could work on Britney's? There you go.
Oh, wow. That's pretty good. I didn't know where that was going.
Anyway, there are three sisters who love running who are currently injured on the same leg. Do you want to know how, Lincoln? I will tell you. So we figured it might be a little desperate for content. Our injury stories are pretty unique, especially because of the coincidence that we all got injured at the same time on the same leg. Kristen is into the full marathon. Melly likes to run halves, and Marissa just likes to run, but mostly like 5Ks. So Kristen basically ran her tailbone off, kind of like Connor Mantz, well, at least close. She actually broke her pelvic bone on the left side during marathon training. She couldn't even stand on one leg to put her pants on. But Kristen was talking to Jared Ward. That's a good person to talk to.
Wow.
When her injury was still undiagnosed, Jared had this moment when he described his pubic bone fracture coming out of the 2016 Olympics and how he couldn't stand up to put his pants on. Kristen started freaking out because that was exactly what was happening to her. Watching her walk was hilarious. It was like watching a baby penguin trying to take its first steps, dragging a hungry polar bear. Melody was scouting on her run. She was on a date, and we just put that in to make her feel better, riding out one of those really dangerous electric scooters that you have to sign your life away to ride. Have you ridden an electric scooter, Lincoln?
No.
Okay. Anyway, she and her scouting partner, her date, were coming back from hiking the Y in Provo, Utah, and one of the scooters stopped working, so they decided to ride on one scooter. The brake failed, and they both had to bail. Long story short, her ACL was torn to shreds, her MCL was partially torn, and her femur bruised. Her scouting partner had to carry her home because she couldn't walk. Her legs swelled up so much she almost didn't get her pants off. Ironic, right? Because Kristen can't get her pants on. Well, she had to have surgery, and now her leg looks really wimpy, but to give her credit, it's getting much stronger. She can currently run farther than anyone else in the family. Finally, Marissa just grew wrong and had to have hip surgery after running a painful season of cross country and tearing her labrum. They found out she had this weird thing called femora acetabular impingement, where her femur and hip don't fit together properly. Really, this is probably just made up, but since we already met the medical insurance deductible, we decided to trust the surgeon and just go for it. Marissa has no trouble with her pants. Well, that's our story. We wanted to be on your podcast because we are unique with our stories, and we are losing our minds with all this COVID-19 stuff going on, especially because Kristen is a nurse and is super into epidemiology and public health, so she's pretty strict with all this. She won't even let us look at our friends or even talk about them without going crazy. So that's Kristen, Melody, and Marissa. Thank you all very, very much.
Well, my brain is still running through all the situations there and all the injuries and everything. I hope to hear an update from them how each of their various maladies are hopefully healing. I hope. Who was it that couldn't put their pants on? Was that Marissa?
That was. I'll tell you. Kristen.
Well, Kristen, I hope you can put your pants on.
Oh, no, wait. She can't take them off. Hold on. Hold on. We'll get the. Oh, Kristen can't get her pants on, and Melody can't take them off. There we go.
Melody. We
got it. We figured it out.
I hope. I mean, if there's a silver lining to this, maybe you don't really have to take your pants on and off right now, in quarantine. But you know, I assume most people are still wanting to every once in a while change clothes.
Yes.
So all the best to those three. That was our best email, I would have to say, that we've ever received. That was incredible.
Checked all the boxes. We got a couple more, but we'll save them for later on in the week. The email address is flotrackpodcast@gmail.com. And I hope everything clears up by the fall, because I'd like to go back to Provo. I went there last year and I had an excellent time. It was the only time in my life I'd ever been to Provo. I'd driven through some other parts of Utah and gone to Zion and things like that, but never been to Provo and Salt Lake. And it was great. And it was, we had a good time filming workouts with the team. So I hope to get back there and see all them and eat at the Red Iguana in Salt Lake City. It was delicious. Isaac Wood just destroyed a milkshake in front of me, and it was an impressive feat that I'll never forget.
Quite the group out there. Quite the Utah.
It is
Utah has it going on.
Yeah. Donovan Mitchell, Isaac Wood. You got the whole squad out there. All right, we'll leave it there. Thanks so long.
You can be a mediator between Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell. You know, they're still feuding a little bit. So, anyways, yeah, go ahead.
I can't imagine why. I don't think I have the capability to mend that one. In any event, thank you to Alon for producing. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll be back tomorrow. Remember, you can find the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, wherever you find your podcasts. We'll talk to you guys later.